The Last Stand is a flash game series. The main concept is that each night, zombies will come for you, and you have to survive against the hordes. Thankfully for us, there's quite a few Project Zomboid mods that we can use to emulate this experience. And as such, we can experience The Last Stand from a different perspective. So, can I survive The Last Stand in Project Zomboid? Before actually talking about the run, I need to mention what our final objective is here. In The Last Stand 2, you have 40 days to make it from one city all the way into Union City so that you can evacuate the mainland. Our objective is pretty similar. We have to make it from Riverside over to Louisville, and then get onto the bridge to escape. This is, of course, a lot easier said than done. Now, I'm going to give myself 1 day of grace just before we start getting attacked. This means that nothing will be coming for us on the first night, only from the second one after. But after that, Horde Nights will be every single night. This also includes any nights we spend on the road, meaning we'll probably have to find ways to deal with zombie attacks while driving from one location to another. Unless we manage to get there fast enough and manage to fortify a place just before the night comes. The reason I say we is because in The Last Stand, you can get survivor companions to help you out through the night. Now, since I don't really have any friends that play Project Zomboid enough to do this sort of challenge with me, I decided to use the Superb Survivors mod. They should be good enough at holding their ground and firing at some zombies. Regardless, on the first day I was already looking around for ways to barricade this little store I had spawned next to. At this point I still didn't really quite know how barricades in Zomboid worked, so I didn't end up making a very effective setup. What I did know was that the metal shelves are an absolute godsend when it comes to barricading. Especially with a mod I have that increases furniture health to make them more effective as barricades. As you can see here, at this point I still didn't quite know how the barricades work in this game. As such, I was putting these shelves against windows when in reality that doesn't really do anything. Later on, however, I actually changed our defensive setup to be focused more on this backyard area, where I can actually use these shelves to their full potential. For this run, having a car is literally essential, otherwise it would be probably physically impossible. I decided to set the cars to easy use mode. This just means that you can pretty much enter any one of them and they all have gas and keys. But don't worry, the challenge itself is hard enough that even with this, it's not easy. Of course, my first stop was going to be the police station. After all, there's no chance I'm going to be able to get anything done with only melee weapons. Now, I set the zombie population to be extremely low at the start so I can pretty much have free reign during this prep time. After this, zombie population will slowly grow back to normal, which is going to be fun when I get to Louisville. Soon enough, I had recruited the first survivor of many into my group. These survivors are actually pretty trash at everything that isn't just sitting still and shooting. At least they have perfect aim. I immediately give Steven a small pistol. Sometimes survivors will spawn with their own guns, but this one didn't. Thankfully though, survivors have literally unlimited ammo, so I don't need to give him any of mine. Soon enough, a second survivor had already joined my group. While I do wish that the Superb Survivors mod kind of toned down the spawns, I'm not going to refuse any help I can get right now. I then decided to mess around with the horribly janky base feature. Apparently, this area is now my base. That just means that I can set my survivors to hang out here, which in general is more useful than having them with me, as they tend to get hit quite often in combat. At this point, I also decide to look for a better car. Ideally, I would need one with quite a few slots and maybe a nice trunk. Though for the time being, as my survivor group is quite small, I'm only going to take one with a lot of storage space. Hopefully I find myself a trailer of sorts and I can put that on a car with more slots to bring along all of my survivors. For the time being, I settle on using this white van. Even though it doesn't have a lot of storage, it has about 8 seats. And that's pretty good for a car of this size. Just like in the last stand, zombie types are varied. There's not a lot of sprinters, but they're still there, and quite often they're going to be the scariest ones. I then go down to the bar to, of course, steal some more shelves. These are possibly the best barricade item, and I'm going to absolutely abuse them if I can. By the end of the first day, our base is already looking pretty good. Hopefully this will be enough to survive, and this run won't go like the previous ones. Though at this point, we're still not quite done with our defenses. Primarily, I need to find myself either a crowbar or a hammer so that I can unbarricade things. This is because Superb Survivors also come with an unlimited supply of planks, and I can set them to start barricading things for free. And when they're done, I simply remove 2 of the planks on the window and we can fire through it. Now, since I set my stat drain to extremely low, I decided to absolutely use this free time to the best of my abilities. I decided to take all of these boxes alongside with the food in them back to my base. This way I had quite a lot of storage. Not that I was going to need it later on, but maybe I could still move some of these boxes with my van later. After all, just about anything you can put between me and the zombies is good. I start off day 2 by going to this weird store complex. I went here specifically because I know that quite a lot of metal shelves can spawn here. Additionally, I took the Spiffle van as it can carry more weight. I of course immediately began stealing these shelves and putting them in my car. Going into the VHS tape store yields even more shelves. At this point I have enough to pretty much block off anything I want. The only problem is that not even my car can carry this many shelves back. One of the problems with Horde Nights is that even though we can block off this back door so the zombies can't get in through there, it's also blocking off our only way out. So even though it provides some rear security, it's at the cost of pretty much killing us if we ever get overrun. While driving downtown, I spotted from the corner of my eye what looked to be like a massive trailer. A trailer is always good, but especially here where I need a car with a lot of seats to get my survivors from one city to another, having a trailer to carry all my things is going to be extremely useful. Unfortunately for me, eventually I found a survivor home and decided to check out what it had. Hopefully it would have some more guns I could give to my survivors and maybe even some ammo. So anyways, I started making my way back to the base. I had gotten a pretty good haul this time and I was feeling confident that I would finally be able to survive past the third night. Now that all the windows had 2 planks to barricade them, we can get started with the final part. This is of course just waiting. At this point I started setting up all the defenses that remained, primarily putting shelves over the door so they couldn't break in through there. Looking back on this run, it's actually quite incredible that this defense actually worked. Believe it or not, this is possibly one of the worst ways to set up a defense, especially considering I'm supposed to use the superb survivors. For some reason, they absolutely hate the idea of firing out of windows, so they pretty much didn't do anything the entire night. Now, even though we start off with pretty bad aim, it really doesn't matter. Because of our advanced trajectory realistic overhaul mod, our bullets are actually bullets, and it's pretty much impossible to miss at point blank range. Our survivors, of course, were busy doing absolutely nothing. Thankfully, even though we had a really bad defensive setup, the first Horde Night is of course the easiest, so we shouldn't really have that much of a problem dealing with it. Eventually, I decided to bring out the M14. It seemed to have a lot more stopping power. At this point, the Zomboids had stopped spawning, but unfortunately there were still quite a few outside I had to go kill. Overall, the first night was actually pretty easy, but I quickly realized that we weren't gonna get anywhere with a setup looking like this. Most of day 3 was uninteresting, so let's go straight to the good part. I decided to abuse the fact that my survivors have infinite planks to build a little wall here. I decided to fill this wall with just windows that I could barricade so that we could shoot through it, but hopefully it would keep the zombies out. After the disaster that was the first night, I realized my survivors probably wanted to be outside to start shooting. So I figured this area back here would be a good place to keep them. After all, if the zombies ever did break through there, I could leave them behind and just climb over the wall. At this point, the storefront wasn't so much meant to be my main line of defense as just something that the zombies wouldn't get through, period. Ideally, I wouldn't also have to be defending that side while also dealing with whatever would be attacking the back walls. That's why I decided to double barricade everything. Not only did I put 2 planks on the inside of the window, but also on the outside, in the hopes that it would at least slow them down a little bit more. At around 6 PM, I decided to just make sure I didn't have any negative moodles going into this fight. This time it was going to be harder than before, and hopefully this time my survivors would also get in the fight to make it a little bit easier. By this point, the sun was already starting to set. I knew what was coming, and I could really only hope that my survivors did their job this time. As always, the night started off easy with only a few zombies. Unfortunately, after a quick check on the front lines, it seems that the zombies were really fond of getting through this table. As the night progressed, more and more zombies decided to make their way over to this table specifically. They pretty much left the entire front of the store alone. And the AI, of course, were being just as useless as ever. Just when I thought Steven was about to be useful, he shot once and then bugged out in a corner. The other side was looking a lot better. There were a lot less zombies there, but they had already broken through the windows and were starting to attack the main barricade. I quickly tried to get William to start firing at them. This time, Steven actually started getting some hits. While I was trying to hold the line, a completely anonymous survivor I never even saw again showed up and started helping us out. I don't know if this was pure luck or maybe a sign that we were supposed to win this run, but they helped out quite a lot. With the help of the unknown survivor, we had successfully made it through the next night. At this point, I was finally starting to piece together how barricades worked in this game, especially with my mod selection. With my newfound knowledge on how defenses in this game work, I felt like I was ready to move on to the next city. But I think for now that's enough Zomboid.